I can understand why this person got mad because this nigga looks like it. Look at this nigga. I can't believe this nigga chose to disrespect Akira Toriyama on the day of his death.
God damn, this isn't September yet, dude. Why are you built like Earth, Wind, and Fire? I mean, do you, but don't start trashing on people without expecting that you will be hit back. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Chill Zone. How's it going? Today we're diving into something a little bit spicy. This is involving Sweet Baby Inc. Yes, I absolutely need to get into the nooks and crannies of this thing because it has been infecting my feed. Ever since I reacted to the Queen Poncelot video that has, well, let's just say still has Asman at the center of it. A lot of his videos have started being recommended to me as well as some of you guys, so given that, it was kind of unavoidable to get around the Sweet Baby Inc. situation. Now, for those of you who do not know, Sweet Baby Inc. is a company that has been around for some years now. It's not like they are suddenly new and they are destroying gaming for some reason. Actually, for those who might have seen my video on John Riccatello, last year, that's what I was trying to say, would have come a little bit across a thing that I covered that involved them, wherein I mentioned the GDC conference. Oh, that's a little bit redundant, calling it conference. Anyways, this collective of game developers who made in Canada and have to talk about how to most effectively spread the word around and best strategy to develop games. But that was with regards to Unity at the time. It's just one huge shit show. And the reason as to why I'm saying shit show is that the original intent of those conferences were great because they were supposed to have like a better connection with gamers, making games that are suited to them for the most part, but it has kind of devolved into something that just makes games more marketable to an audience that is going to be spending more money on it. Like the bad part of live service, and of course a huge focus on mobile games, and of course since that video had to do with Unity, that was the bread and butter. Now that being said, Sweet Baby Inc. being this consultant company that has to do with a lot of sensitivity and inclusion has been making the rounds now because a Steam group that created a curated list of games that they deemed bad because of their involvement in there decided to both retaliate in some of the comments that they got for Sweet Baby Inc. and back and forth, and things just went bad. Now, to my understanding, because this company isn't new, Sweet Baby had experienced some sort of harassment in the past, which had caused them to shut down some of the socials. But this time around, it turns out that they are the ones firing the harassment. So this is why I want to check this video out, this time not from Asman, because not to put some shade on the guy, I just think that a lot of time his criticism of some of these situations tend to be just kind of streamlined just to make content, but doesn't dive deep enough to understand where the reason from the problem really stems from. His editor tends to do a lot of research, obviously, but not him himself. So I want to check something from Mutahar instead and see his take, some ordinary gamer. So let's get into this.
Hello guys and gals, me Mutahar, how's it going? Today we got to talk about something known as Sweet Baby Inc. Now I've been seeing this fly around on the internet for a fair bit, and ladies and gentlemen, it's been all over the internet blowing up. I've seen it in my comments section, and obviously pertaining to gaming, I wanted to give a chance and actually talk about this a little bit. But before we get into it, I wanted to bring up the sponsor for today's video, me, Mutahar. And not just me, gamer from Mars, Oompaville, and Chris Collins. I know the weirdest blunt rotation
call me
imaginable.
Chris.
We are actually in the skin cream industry now. And I'm not talking about some white labeling stuff that other creators do. No, we're actually working with a manufacturer that has created our own actual proprietary formula. And the reason why we ended up doing the skincare stuff is obviously we're into it, but other skincare brands are 100% some of the most complicated things. No, I'm not buying 60 products to put on my face and following a ritual, okay?
Look, it takes like 2 minutes. Wash your face, exfoliate, put some butter there, keep it moisturized. That's all. That's how you get this beautiful thing here.
Hey, this is not American Psycho. And I can say that kind of stuff because I own the goddamn company. Now, ladies
Sure.
and gentlemen, to understand, it is a simple product for people who just want to apply 30 seconds of their time to basically do one pump out of a bottle, apply it to their face, and just get that routine out of the way. So if that interests you, go to our website. I'll link in the description below, gotoneup.com. That said, though, ladies and gentlemen, Sweet Baby Inc.
Yeah.
Now, of course, this is a Steam group that you're seeing right here, Sweet Baby Inc. SBI Detected. And if you look at SBI Detected over here, the reason why we're talking about this company in particular is, ladies and gentlemen, it is growing massively. So right now it has 178,000 followers right now. This is the perfect example of the Streisand effect, and I'll get exactly why.
Jesus Christ. Well, it's increased. I just looked it up. It's 255,000 now. God damn.
If I hit F5, that number grows harder and harder and harder. So to go over the overview here is obviously this company is for letting people know if a game is involved with this company. So obviously I wanted to go exactly and research what is Sweet Baby Inc. So if you go to Sweet Baby Inc., they're founded in 2018 as a narrative development and consultation studio based in Montreal and working around the globe. Our mission is to tell better, more empathetic stories while diversifying and enriching the video game industries. We aim to make games more engaging, more fun, more meaningful, and more inclusive for everyone. So it's one of these narrative consulting firms where basically, you know, writers or game companies, AAA stuff will usually end up going to just so they can get a better idea of how to make their games more diverse or more inclusive, right?
Which there's nothing wrong with. Less, of course, the intent of a company doing that is to gain them free ESG points. That tends, unfortunately, to be the reason why some of the big studios end up doing it, with the exception of a few. But yeah, it tends to happen like that. And ESG, by the way, is like this whole inclusion and environmental scale kind of things that you can get for a company to make sure that they work well with other players. Like you see something like Apple, BlackRock, all of those who would like... It gets them free promotion in terms of the investors to make sure that they gain a certain capital. That's why, for example, I would imagine, this is not a tested theory, I'm just thinking about this because I did some research regarding Capcom, who is one of those companies who hasn't done the whole firing round that we've seen for last year and this year as well in terms of game development. And well, these companies would usually just cut corners, obviously. We fire a bunch of our staff, but we still want to see that growth coming. And if EFG points can provide us that, they will do so. But I don't think that there's anything inherently wrong with inclusivity or sensitivity readings, as it is commonly known as, because it can serve a very good purpose.
You know, adding in characters that are people of color or, you know, multiple different types of, unrepresented minority groups that may exist. That's kind of the general vibe and the mission statement you're getting out of this. However, there were some posts from the actual people associated with this company that are actually against the concept of inclusiveness.
And that's where it gets bad.
So if you look at some of their projects, they've worked on really big stuff like Alan Wake 2, a game I enjoyed. They tell you exactly that they worked on the character arc, voice, and the sensitivity reading. I wish they could get a little bit more verbose about it, but of course, games like Sable, where they worked on the writing and character voice. And I've seen this game in the market. I've played it a few times on the Steam Deck, actually kind of trying to chew through it. You've got Spider-Man 2, God of War Ragnarok.
Hold
but
on.
obviously, I want to look at...
Let me see. What did it say on Spider-Man? We worked on the story and consultation. Now, obviously, the thing that a lot of people that I suppose are going to LARP on this, I'm just assuming, okay, is that a lot of the backlash that this has gotten might come from like an anti-woke crowd. And I know that I'm using a buzzword here that also makes me freaking annoyed. I hate when people use that word because it has literally lost all of its meaning in the same way that people are being called fascist and racist from left and right. from simply bringing up criticism, but in the same way, these very same people will call just the inclusion of a black person within a video game or a different story just woke. Okay, no, fuck no, that does not sit right with me, especially when the game is good. I understand where people are coming from, but it's also kind of fucking dumb to then go around and review bombing games just because they feature this company. And good game at that.
Motorman 2, God of War Ragnarok. But obviously I want to look at more of their projects. So if we actually go over here, you can see that they've worked on absolute bangers like this. Okay, yeah, they worked on the script writing, the banter, cutscenes, barks, audio logs, etc. Yeah, the game is crap, but I don't think it's necessarily crap for the writing. I mean, I've seen the Batman dying scene at the end.
Yeah, obviously.
Oh boy,
the worst send-off to Kevin Conroy ever. But you cannot possibly tell me that the story of Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League, which is bad, okay? It has severe issues with the continuity that has already been established in the Arkham series, because we know it's in universe with the Arkham universe. So, there's so many elements there that feels weird, but those are changes, okay? Those are weird-ass changes. And I could even excuse that story if the game was actually good. The gameplay in this game absolutely freaking sucks. But you cannot tell me that you saw what Rocksteady did with the 3 Arkham games, right? You saw what they did with Arkham Knight. An unfinished broken mess that had a development process that I can only deem as being premature to the point where EDP would want to have a bite at it. I'm sorry. You cannot tell me that you saw that broken mess of a game and saw Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League, which did all the bad things 10 times worse, from the gameplays and everything that we got to see before the game was released, and you thought to yourself, this is going to be a masterpiece. Hell no, come on, get out of here.
That's bad. But ladies and gentlemen, I think what I'm getting out of this is that game just sucks because it's a crappy live service pile of nonsense. And of course, they've worked on the proofreading and additional writing for the Crew Motorfest.
Die. I keep remembering that Frenchman presentation.
Dive. Dog, it's a racing game. What are you doing? Now, obviously, there's a amount of gamers that don't necessarily enjoy forced diversity, equity, and inclusion in their games, okay? And
but then again, that is if it's forced, obviously. I think that most of us will agree that when representation is done just to score points and is needless, we are all going to disagree on that.
Regardless of what your stance is on that, being pandered to or whatnot, at the end of the day, we're going to be looking at some of the people associated with this company making some rather crass statements that go against the idea of inclusion. Again, inclusion means all of us get along.
Yeah.
And we necessarily put everyone inside the big bubble we call a melting pot, and we don't try to exclude anybody regardless of whatever racial orientation or whatever they have going for them that they can't necessarily control, right?
Yeah.
We don't get born into the world with a character creator. But God, if we did, I'd be looking like my Ark Survival character, okay? Anyways, let's get to the magical fun here. So, because this Steam group was made, one account, the narrative designer for Sweet Baby Inc., decided to signal boost and cause the Streisand effect, where...
Oh, isn't that the... Oh my god. It's the same person, isn't it? Okay, I'm sorry. I'm kind of a loss of words here. Earlier today, dropped a tweet for somebody who worked at that was trending, that decided to insult Akira Toriyama. Now, don't get me wrong, I could put you in like a weird moral dilemma when it comes to these things. I think it's okay to make fun of dead people.
Kill him!
Even if they just died. I'm okay with that. I'm not okay with you making fun of Akira Toriyama because I obviously have a bias, but I'm okay with that. Like, I made fun of Harry Kissinger when he died. I made fun of the dude from what's it called, Ocean Gate submarine when he died. Because absolute buffoon, bad human beings. But obviously, some people will also make fun of individuals that you even enjoy. People made fun of MJ. a person that has, I guess, just as much influence like Akira had through Dragon Balls, but instead through his music. But they still made fun of Michael Jackson when he died and called him every kind of slurs and words that allegedly might be true. Now, I don't want you to make fun of Toriyama, obviously. But on the other hand then, that's one part. The other part of it was that the person was just objectively wrong, making assertions that Mr. Popo and Oob, I guess, was the target there, were both the bad and the best black character in Dragon Ball. To which I'm like, have you ever seen the Hindu god of time manipulation there? Who is the inspiration for Mr. Popo, of course. Like, I'm not denying that Mr. Popo was not problematic. He bloody is, just like Jinx the Pokemon, okay? He is. And Oob is Indian, I think so. Yeah, he has to be. Because that's the whole point. Because of the whole arc with his tribe and stuff. But regardless of the situation, the person was just objectively wrong with the criticism that they were making. If they weren't the least talking about the black guy from the red ribbon, then I would have been like, okay, perhaps that would have made sense.
Where by actually blowing something up and trying to, push people away from, you actually bring it to more eyes than it initially would have ever been to.
Yeah.
So this account says, the Steam creator harassment group, Sweet Baby Inc., detected is led by this person, Cabrutus Rambo. Here's them trying to be slick so they don't get reported. Even with the discriminatory language filed off, the group itself still fails the code of conduct. And of course, they keep saying, hey, report the fuck out of this group.
But then you're inciting... fuck. Well, that's not the way that you do it. But okay, sure. Report is not bad. Let's see further.
Of course, when their account actually ended up getting protected, they actually said, hey guys, they got my ass. I guess a few hundred gamers reported me, where they actually ended up getting locked on X because, again, some of their posts were obviously not cool. It was incitement of actual harassment. Now, obviously, whatever this Steam group is and their disdain for this company, it doesn't necessarily warrant harassment.
Obviously not.
What they did was basically create a list of games that they found were actually connected to Sweet Baby Inc. Now, some of these were kind of misfires. I think Starfield was listed inside here, but I don't think that has an actual connection. But
the urge to resist using a Wojak of Haas right now. I mean him no ill will. I know that he has different standing from mine or many other people, but it was a memeable moment, and it's a meme. Okay? He should be able to take that as a joke. He made himself into that.
Obviously, games like the Crew Motorfest, anything listed on their website and on Steam, obviously they put into a list, and the gamers who were interested in this, who wanted to boycott, basically knew what to boycott in this situation, right? And that's generally what it was, right? Like, people did not want any game associated with the writing works that these people were involved in, right? That's pretty much what the general idea was. And again, if we're talking about boycott lists, those are not harassment lists, okay? There was no harassment necessarily from at least what I've researched on this group being directed towards anybody, right? Obviously, people started to dig in to the individuals who worked for Sweet Baby Inc., at least the public-facing figures, when they started to actually get attacked by this company. Based on the actual person tweeting we just read, the opening salvo seems to have started from these people who wanted a mass reporting of the Steam group. Now, obviously, I'm not going to sit here and pretend that there isn't a little bit of a political bias in this group to some capacity. In fact, one of the actual posts was real journalists, okay? Why the famous gaming media don't see this problem? Your opinion. Because 90% of them are activists of the very woke kind, and from Gamergate, we know they all collude with each other in WhatsApp groups to push narratives and articles in uniforms. The communists have infiltrated most news media and get their narratives from unknown, unseen, dark sources. There are a handful of news sites still fighting back. Daily Wire, PragerU, you can see exactly what...
Seriously? I'm sorry. If your like source of morality that is a factual evidence come from PragerU and the Daily Wire, my God, I don't know what to say. Like, obviously, do you? I'm not gonna change your opinion when it comes to that thing. It's gonna take days because, like, obviously, individuals who very much like those same Twitter folks here from Sweet Baby Inc. are just firing a bunch of claims that can never be substantiated. But you do you. But that was literally the thing that I was kind of worried about, because it often happens that these are the kind of conflation that gets involved with this. Like, okay, you see a company that said, we are working on inclusion. And then you straight up go, oh my god, those woke folks, we don't want them involved in our games. They're destroying it. But then you go around and you see, wait, what is the actual involvement that they had in here?
What alignment you're kind of getting over here with at least some of these posts. Obviously, not everyone in this group is of one alignment, but, you know, I've seen a lot of posts over here that are that are wild, right? Had a nightmare that I was a SBI employee. Makes me wish Freddy Krueger was real. The illness, the fragility, and the smell. Don't even get me started on the smell. Yeah, I understood that reference. Your avatar has pink hair. Just thought I let you know. Yeah, I think I'm getting what I think I'm getting what they're putting down here.
Isn't it weird sometimes? Like, if you are an anti-woke person, like I've seen some channels who report on this type of things, like, and the avatar is literally like a fanboy or like a femme adjacent character with like varying sorts of colors of hair. That, like, they literally looked at the people that they're supposed to hate. And I'm like, are you fucking kidding me? You're them. You're spewing a similar rhetoric. Like, that's fucking insane.
But again, the games that they were listing over here, if you're actually looking at the store page for the games, they obviously pointed out games like Assassin's Creed Valhalla, where they obviously linked it through actual features on their website, for instance, and so on and so forth. So again, they're not recommending any game associated with this company because of its, you know, the DEI practices.
But I'm sorry, I gotta ask, right? These are bad people, okay? I've seen some of the tweets. They suffer from some sort of delusion. But the games themselves, let me, if I can pull out the link again. The games themselves, how are they bad because of their involvement? That's the thing that I think is kind of dumb. Because if we check here, Zao, this is the thing made by the, it was announced during the Game Awards, right? The Assassin's Creed Origins voice actor for Bayek. And it was making it to like commemorate his father or something. And yeah, it looks like a fun Metroidvania. And because they're involved, it's bad.
I'm going to try and break your game in the best possible way. Like
Neil Newborn is involved there, the voice actor for Astarion. And yeah, the Bayek voice, VA. Obviously, I'm interested just to see their performances. But you're gonna tell me that a game that hasn't even released yet, is gonna be bad? Like, I'm literally curious to know about this. I see Valhalla here, which is on a generally positive here. You're telling me that this game is bad because of the involvement in there, not because of the fact that the game takes you 100 hours to complete because of terrible mechanics and predatory practices that want you to spend more money on buying cosmetics rather than actually making a good AC game. Love After, or After Love, Gotham Knight, as I've mentioned. You're telling me that this game is bad because of the writing, where the story is even better than that of Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League? Are you serious here? I mean, seriously, I do not know what this is, but one could easily conflate the whole thing with the buzzword of, oh, black women involved, do not buy this game. Shadow Gambit, extremely positive game, now it's just too very positive. I'm sorry, this is not fair, okay? It's not fair to go down and start review bombing this game just because of the involvement in there. Doesn't discredit this game just because the connection to SBI. Thank you, finally, some people with some fucking sense. That's what I'm saying. This is not fair. This is a game comparable to the likes of Divinity, to freaking Baldur's Gate. They did the freaking best with Shadow Gambit. You cannot go around and say to people, well, do not buy this because of Sweet Baby Inc.'s involvement in there when it turned out to be a good game. And that's the weird thing that I do not understand, because usually with this kind of things it was like easily identifiable. The whole shtick of go woke, go broke, right? You can attach the label of wokeness on something that is bad, objectively bad, and then start making arguments from there. But when it is successful and everybody's loving it, what the hell? Goodbye to Volcano High, like I would understand, very positive. This is a game that has to do with a lot of sensitivities. From the art alone you can deem that. It's still on a very positive, but some people are of course going to say don't get this because of Sweet Baby Inc. Even further, Hyper Light Breakers. Isn't this the game that Asman was super hyped about when it got revealed? Yeah, this one too should not be touched. Usual Judge, or June, sorry. I guess Black Woman again involved. Do not touch it. Sable, fantastic game. Do not touch because of Sweet Baby Inc. This one as well. And Alan Wake 2. Dude, Alan Wake 2? Really?
So without actually listing any hard evidence of, I guess, harassment that this group was doing, what effectively happened was the people, who worked for Sweet Baby Inc. ended up causing the Streisand effect and raising more awareness for this group.
Yeah.
So obviously the people that are interested in this, that don't want the DEI practices in their game, know a list, and that's pretty much how Steam curation lists work anyways. Again, it's kind of funny how, like, you claim one side is harassing, but then you also end up doing the mass reporting and harassing in a way yourself.
Yeah.
There's nothing inherently wrong with people compiling a list of games they want to boycott.
It's within their right.
If a market force wants to boycott products, it's totally well within their rights to do so.
Yeah, you just have to, like, the easiest thing that you can do is just to prove that the product that you are putting forth is actually good. That's literally all you had to do. That's all, right? Trolls are bad, okay? I'm not going to say that, they did not provide substantial evidence for the fact that they were harassed. Thus, it never happened. There's a possibility. I do not know. But in the case of that being true, the best that you could do is literally prove to them that the stuff that you're doing is good. And then shut your mouth. Let the public decide. That's the standing that I'm on right now, because I do not understand why they're mass reporting games that are actually good. That's my whole prerogative here. As a gamer, that's what I care about the most. Obviously, there are some people who have stated that we should not care about what goes on in the background, right? But still, we should. And that's why I'm checking out this video.
Now, when I started this video and I talked about, of course, this is a company that's focusing on inclusion, I think inclusion is great, right? But when you're looking at a company like this, where their whole, shtick is that, it's pretty bad when some of the people behind it are making rather uninclusive statements. So let's actually read some of this stuff real quick. So one of the people who works for consulting for Sweet Baby Inc., who is Lego Butts, all right, this individual, known as Maya, for instance, has been making some rather wild posts anyways. So if you actually look at some of their posts, this is from Archive Today, meaning that you can grab this link right here, all right, Alt Control Copy, and you can basically just drop that into your URL bar, and you can actually read these as actual statements right here. Now again, ladies and gentlemen, the reason why I'm showing you these archive posts is to show you that these were actually made. Again, there's a lot of screenshots floating around, and whenever I cover topics like this, I always try to get to the absolute source and truth of the matter.
Yeah.
So this individual started writing things like, I usually get grossed out when straight, white, rich people kiss, but even I think those two are pretty cute.
Jesus
That's
Christ.
a weird thing to be writing. Again, when it comes to a lot of these diversity firms, it often feels like everyone is totally okay, but anytime you bring somebody, from the Caucasian side, suddenly
it's bad,
suddenly it's okay to demonize one group. I don't think inclusion can exist when people start excluding one group of people. That's
Absolutely
just weird.
not.
In a perfect world, and again, I know the world isn't perfect. I'm not a fucking naive idiot. I wish we all did get along, right? Obviously, I think inclusion and diversity is great, but it has to be applied equally, and starting to demonize one group and putting up the rest is never going to bring us on a path closer to each other. If anything, all that does is instill division. Anyways,
course.
preachiness aside. Then you found this one right here. Pay me to shoot down your white male lead game ideas. Ow!
Okay, you can't do that. You literally cannot do that. It doesn't. It literally doesn't matter what the hell have happened in the past, because everything is about optics. I don't care if you're hurt. I don't care if, like, for a majority of the time, right, the big leaders within the industry will be straight white male. Okay, it doesn't matter. You cannot come with this kind of rhetoric. Then nobody's gonna take you seriously, ever. They would not even want to listen to you.
That's cute. That's wild. Now again, these were back in 2014. But when you're talking about, you know, consulting for this kind of stuff, it's not looking good. Then of course you had one. I had a nightmare that I was a white male gamer.
Oh, so that's the reference to the previous thing there that they mentioned in that group. Okay, I see.
Dude, there's people in war-torn countries right now where that's like a good dream. That's like a perfect dream on a somewhat like decent day. That, man, you live a very privileged, sheltered life if that's the case. So this one is a screenshot. I hate to be rude, but what's the point in talking to you anymore? Me on Twitter to men every day.
Get
Seems like
alive.
this person doesn't like guys that much. 50% of the world is bad. Now, of
Terminate
course,
the
at
online.
some point, you get some pretty bad posts, and this is one where it's to a Marxist dog aboard all the
An anti-Semite at that, and then working for the. See, this is the thing, right? This is posted in 2012. I think that we can all agree that if a person has made some very distasteful comment in the past, all depending, of course, on the severity, and they have literally suffered through the consequences of their actions, and perhaps have made amends, then we can agree that this is okay if they have changed, right? Some people will remember something like the James Gunn jokes that he was making some years ago that got him fired from his position at Marvel for some time for the Guardians of the Galaxy movies. And obviously, he had changed, okay? I won't necessarily say that he became a new man, but these were not the type of things that he would have wanted to be associated with now. But this person clearly has not changed. Jesus Christ.
God's chosen people, I guess. That's whoa, that's pretty bad. And of course, I tried to find the actual origin point of this, the context. Post is unavailable, but it's funny that this tweet was violating X's rules against violent speech. I mean, no.
No shit. But it's kind of funny also because these posts are being made every single day now, and X is not removing them. Why? You may ask Elon about that.
No shit. And then, of course, what's even wilder is this one right here. Okay, I don't even know if I can read this. At 20, yo, hotshot. No, but the statement when I grow up made me feel like a giant. Ooh, PD. Ooh,
Oh, Jesus.
PDF. Ooh, that's bad. Shut up, Jamie. I know I am. And again, I tried to get the context to this, but seems like the account owner limits whoever can do that wildness. So yeah, these were some of the posts that were made. But of course, one of the mission statements that was posted by an account known as Learning the Law said, we have to look at story and narrative as one of the things that we can innovate on. Like when you bring someone in from a different culture, from a different background, from a different gender, they're going to create something that we haven't seen before. The way we look at demographics is that we go, okay, the majority of our player base is, let's say, a white male. So we're going to make stuff for white males. But if you make something from the perspective of an Asian trans woman, and it's really strong, then it will work for people. People crave new stories. And if you want to innovate, even to stay current, it's not about graphics, it's not about hardware, it's about opening up new perspectives for people. So I explain it as is. It's important to game development to diversify. It's not.
I mean, she's not necessarily wrong in this, but it's the way that it's formulated. Obviously, gaming has largely been for like an audience of rich white people, for the most part. That we cannot deny that because they were the one who had access to it. But that doesn't mean that it was bad, that it was that way. You can advocate for inclusion without just making something that is towards just one group. I mean, is it weird? Is it weird to be able to formulate that better?
not just part of advocacy or activism, it's going to make your games better. Alex. Also, of course, gamers are mostly white guys. If you're making games for white guys, try making games for somebody else. Maybe they'll show up. You know, maybe those people will show up, right? But I think for most people, when they're looking at this, it's important that multiple perspective exists, right? A multiple perspective can lead to new game stories that you probably haven't heard of before. But for them to say it's going to make your games better, again, I don't know how you're going to sit down and necessarily make the gameplay better by going down this aspect of forced diversity, forced inclusion, and whatnot. And again, forced inclusion is me just kind of assessing it for myself. It's a little bit bad faith that I say that, but again, generally, it's cool to get different perspectives. Look, some of my favorite games have been characters that I guess these people would call POCs. One of my favorite games is Grand Theft Auto San Andreas, a game that has a black character, a black protagonist, Carl Johnson. It's obviously, that race is designed because it's a game that takes place in 90s, a parody 90s Los Angeles gang-ridden world, where obviously it's rife with, African Americans, Hispanics, and obviously that is a world where you start off as a gangster, but Carl opens up as a character that's pretty empathetic towards his family, somebody that wants something better in life. He's proven to be quite intelligent when he can organize entire heists in Las Venturas. Play Grand Theft Auto San Andreas. Great title.
Yeah. And also, if I can add to this, that's one of the reasons why I think that the whole sensitivity reading might not necessarily be a bad thing. Because think of, obviously, San Andreas is a much older title, but think of something like, what was it? It came out 2011? Yeah, just before 2012, I think so. Assassin's Creed 3. So AC3 obviously features one of my favorite assassin Connor, or Raton Haggaton. Now, 1 year within the development of AC, Ubisoft team went and consulted a bunch of folks, namely one comic book author that I used to remember. God damn it, he used to do some Transformers stuff. But consulted them to make sure that they had an accurate representation of the Indian tribes or Native American tribes that they were going to be representing. And from the vestments to the jewelry they would wear, the language, the costumes that they would do. Obviously, that was the right thing to do because they wanted to have a good representation. Ubisoft earning this kind of like, what's the word that I'm looking for here? Reputation for making good digital tourism. That's a thing that they wanted to live up to. Like, you wouldn't want to see some people wearing, like Indians wearing those headbands with stripes and everything, because it's literally a stereotype that came out of the fact that bad Indian movies that were played by white people had them wearing those wigs that had the feathers and everything hair that had to be held there because they weren't those, it wasn't the real hair. Now, obviously, do want to do that correctly. That's just a random example, right? I'm not saying that Ubisoft was trying to do that, but just as an example. And it doesn't have to do with the ethnicity of people necessarily. It can be about something that is very sensitive topics. Let's say David Cage and freaking Quantic Game. What would have happened if David Cage's goober ass consulted an actual company, told them to work in tandem with a Quantic Game and write a better script for the sensible topics of Heavy Rain, with like kidnapping, child abuse, all of those things? Do you think that Heavy Rain would have had less of Jason? I think so. I think it would have. So I definitely think that it does serve a purpose, but obviously, okay, I'm not so naive not to acknowledge the fact that sometimes it does occur that the demographics that they're trying to depict are straight up made up, that the issues that they are trying to solve through making all of this is invented. Then that's where it becomes problematic. But from a get-go, it isn't. Like freaking Alan Wake 2. Let's say that they consulted them to depict a better picture of Finnish culture, right? Because it wasn't just Saga Anderson that was involved there, because the story arc had a lot to do with other characters as well. The twins there, at least. And let's take a case like Alan Wake 2, right? The story arc that it said that they were involved with does not necessitate that it had only something to do with Saga Anderson. Like, it could have been something with the story of Ati, who has been a recurring character that has to do with the mythology of the waters of Finland, for example. He was a mythological god of water. The Koskela brothers and their practices, all of those things that were involved there. And even if you were to argue that it was about a POC character there, what would have happened if the story that they were trying to depict was, let's say, something about me, right? I'm Danish and also Cameroonian. So I have both the African and the Northern European cultures involved with me. Like, what is wrong with trying to depict a story for somebody who has the perspective of that from Scandinavia as well as Africa? Like, there's literally nothing wrong about it. And especially when the product proved that it was good. Why would you go out of your way to try and sabotage something that is already been established to be working well and is good? Where is the harassment in Alan Wake 2? Why was that stuff not brought up before? At least that's one of the big issues that I have with this. Like, you are ruining the work of people who actually put a lot of passion in there by making sure that they don't get sold more. At least I review bombed, and people obviously are not going to dive deeper into it, trying to understand where it came from. Will just see, oh, bad reviews. Perhaps I shouldn't touch it.
Of course, that's just one example of, you know, a diverse or a minority character that isn't shoehorned into a video game, and it's a different perspective that can be offered, right? That's kind of what we're going with. Whatever writing that these people did for games like, you know, the Kill the Justice League nonsense that dropped, obviously that's never going to work. But they obviously did work on things like God of War. They worked on Alan Wake 2, which from what I've played are pretty decent games. Again, I think mileage kind of varies in the situation.
Yeah.
But reading those tweets that I did not too long ago, that kind of rhetoric, that kind of discussion only serves to divide people around them. And that's one of the reasons why this boycott is actually occurring and why gamers are not comfortable with a company like this. And it's understandable.
Yeah, I understand that.
Without the context, I can't exactly confirm this story, but when you read things like, I just had a thought about trying this again with the photo of a young white person about to be ripped open, but I'm betting folks would immediately flag it as traumatic, and I'm guessing the image would get taken down before responses accumulated. I feel like these people are plants by like the CIA.
They sound like plants.
Us as human beings against each other. Like this kind of shit. Who writes this stuff and feels goddamn normal? It's just
Terminally online people.
Like, what? What are you doing? So some of the other clips that people were linking out was from a GDC talk in 2021. Now you see me, representation as innovation. And of course, it's a 29-minute video, and there's a couple clips in it that kind of struck people out of context a little bit, or struck people out of the blue. Listen to some of these.
And something that is locked in place. So something that does not want to change and something that is locked in place. So despite like the changing face of audiences, despite the changing face of conferences like this one, we still look at our core demographics and say, okay, they're white, cis, hetero males. And we cater almost exclusively to them. And the problem is that we don't just cater to them like, you know, here's something that we think you'll enjoy. We cater to them the way that we cater to like a picky baby. We feed them the same thing that we know that they love, and we keep on feeding it. We're like, here you go, you love it, eat this, eat this, eat this. So that then when they get anything else, they react as a picky baby would, which is be like, oh no, thank you, I do not want this. And we've actually done this so long that what we're doing is creating an entire nation of picky babies. And
so this clip right here is kind of wild. Like it's again, I think the big problem is if you're like a normal person and you look at shit like this, specifically isolating the whole white cis hetero male crowd, which again would probably be like a mass majority of video gamers, because yes, back in the day, I'm sure that was the only demographic that started jumping in to a pretty expensive hobby. I mean, gaming, in my opinion, used to be way expensive back in the day. So maybe that was kind of the roots of it.
Yeah.
And obviously she's kind of going into this topic like, hey, maybe we catered to them so long that after a while, that's just all they ever wanted. Now,
that kind of makes sense, but then again, the optics, the way that you formulate things, Jesus Christ, even if you want to say the most benevolent thing after that, people are gonna say, are you calling me a fucking baby? Who the fuck do you think you are? Like, it's so dumb.
To understand in this situation, right, to kind of debunk and discuss this point, again, I don't appreciate the idea of, like, again, isolating one group of people. Inclusion can never happen when you're excluding one group of people right over here. And I do understand her point right here as well. I remember when GTA 6 was announced, and even during the leaks when they had, like, Lucia as a female character, there was a few people going, is Grand Theft Auto fucking woke now? They got a woman in the game? Women commit crimes? How is that possible? Yeah, let me tell you right now, you might not think that a woman can commit a crime, but once you get access to a 9mm in your hand, everyone is a great equalizer.
Great
right?
equalizer.
That's how it works. And look, at the end of the day, my whole stance on this is the game isn't out yet. Obviously, if the game comes out and there's a lot of tropes
pandering,
that are going to make you groan, if there's constant, parts in GTA 6 where...
But even at that point, if there's pandering, it's going to be like represented as the way that culturally people have been doing that for the last few years. This is where I would expect there to be that kind of behavior.
Jason, the white protagonist, is going to be shit on. Like, if they have blatant performative talks like that, and we all know what we're talking about with blatant performative stuff, right? Like, if they're generally going to shit on him, make him like a total, complete dumbass imbecile, while Lucia is basically running the entire show. They specifically constantly reference that she is the more intellectual of the other one, and this guy is basically dependent on her, and he basically, bends over backward for this.
Yeah,
yes,
no
we
real
can all
effort
pretty
for
much say
realistic
that that's a
characters.
shitty written script. But until the game comes out, nobody has any idea of the situation. Anybody that does offer the overreaction, I think most of the gaming society definitely makes fun of them and criticizes them, rightfully so. I get what she's trying to say, but again, it all falls flat when you're actually excluding people as an inclusive company. You're supposed to bring people together, and that includes the people that the gaming industry was, I guess, initially catering to. It's okay to have diversity and inclusion and shit like that, but constantly doing and having these talks is not good. I cannot take you seriously as an inclusive company when you're actually excluding a group of people off the bat.
And there's like a dozen other answers that are all like variations on those themes. But kind of like a pseudo fun fact about me.
The popular thing that went out, wasn't there a clip of her saying like you can scare your white CEO to make sure that they include these things in the game? Like, listen to yourself, woman, when you're saying things like that. Nobody can take you seriously. And Mutahar is absolutely correct. Like, you cannot get that if you're trying to not trying, but if you decisively exclude one group.
Slightly fun is that I actually have a marketing degree. And so I want to put on that, completely go just give up. We've screwed it. But I think it's still amazing that I can be seated in a meeting and told that out of 12 characters, we already have one black one, so there can't possibly be a second. I get that way too much. And I once worked on a project where they had an all-white cast, and they expressed their desire, okay, we need to mix it up a bit. How about this character is kind of stereotypically French? So they have a beret, and they have a striped shirt. And I was like, okay, if you need to do that, can we at least make them a person of color? And they said, oh no, that would be weird. They're already French. So I want to do better than this.
See, the whole idea, and the whole idea isn't about let's make that character, let's make that character like a different race or something. I think the idea was that she was trying to counter the person that was going bro, but they're French. French people are just supposed to be whites anyways, right? Especially in 2024, it's also another melting pot society. There's French people that look like me. They talk.
That's literally me. Me. Granted, French Cameroonian, but Jacques? Yeah, you don't get more than literally. I went out to get something when I was dropping my daughter to daycare today. Do you recognize this thing? Pain au chocolat. It doesn't get more French than this.
Fucking French, but they look like me. I think what you should be hammering is, if you want to talk about good fucking writing, probably don't write a stereotypical French character that would be out of Looney Tunes back in the day, okay? With the beret and the cigar in their mouth. Dog, Nostalgia Critic made this joke over a decade ago.
And again, to elaborate on this point, I really do believe that when I talk about, like, obviously a good, well-written character, obviously her example of the French character, clearly, that was a stereotypical character, wear a beret, smoke, eat a baguette, and I'm sure everyone can laugh at that, but when I think of a well-written character, no matter what their nationality is, no matter what their racial background is, as an Indian person, would I love to see an Indian character represented in a modern, AAA game? Sure, absolutely. Who wouldn't, right? Like, that would be fun to see. But I'm more interested in a well-written character. I don't like, obviously, seeing myself represented just for the sake of diversity. Obviously, that level of pandering only serves to infuriate people like me and everyone around us. And it doesn't really give gaming that mature look that it needs. Now, when I say well-written, well-meaning characters, I really do mean characters that have depth to them. Going back to that CJ example that I had with San Andreas, or Samus Aran, characters that have actual intrinsic characteristics of their personality, of their humanity, that is more than just what they're born with, right? I think in reality land, people are more than the sum of their intrinsic characters, right? As an Indian person who was raised in Canada, my life experiences, my culture, my beliefs, what happens when my synapses fire are different than another Indian person out there. Obviously, if I was to see myself represented in a game as some blatant stereotype, obviously it's going to kind of aggravate me or whatever. And so when firms like this exist, I think at best it's when, hey, they're actually out there to write well-meaning human characters, right? But obviously looking at their past tweets and some of the people's past statements, it really feels like, again, there is a divisive rift in there, right? Like, again, you can't have inclusion when you are actually demonizing or chastising people of one specific race over the other, right? We've made a lot of progress, right, in civil rights and in race relations in like the last several decades. And to see these people kind of have like an elementary view of that, of human beings and the interpersonal relationships we have, I think that's what insults the vast majority. And are there people that obviously are like, I'm not going to play that game because I don't like that character and their skin color? Yeah, we make fun of that.
Idiots.
Okay? We call those people idiots. Giving them any form of like validity or even thinking about what they say is just feeding a troll. But yeah.
Exactly. Like, if you start acting in the same fucking way, then how can we take you seriously?
Yeah, when I talk about well-meaning characters, that's literally what I'm on about.
Now, the reason why people were looking into this company as well too is that there's been a bit of a link to something known as ESG. Now, obviously, why would a big AAA publisher or like indie games or like a company outsource to some people like this, or
free money,
a company that works in diversity, so to speak, or inclusive writing? And that's because of something that is known as ESG. So to give you an idea, diversity, equity, and inclusiveness, this is a term that is used, DEI, and of course it has a link to something known as ESG. So for instance, when it comes to dog whistle diversity, right, this is actually a criticism of the situation. What had effectively happened was dog whistle diversity is defined as the hiring of groups, and you can, I guess, replace that with, I guess, inclusiveness of different groups for video games, who have historically been underrepresented or subject to discrimination by organizations for the social aspect of environmental, social, and corporate
investors
governance,
and shareholders.
ESG. To investors and stakeholders, hiring these groups sends a coded message that the organization is more open to a diverse workforce. But to the groups hired, it suggests the organization lacks effective diversity management or inclusion. So obviously it's just designed to be window dressing, right? Like if you write these inclusive stories for investors who are putting money into these big game companies, they'll think, oh yeah, this is a pretty progressive, like, sustainable, thoughtful company. We'll put money into it. But for the people that are being represented, POCs, people like me or whatever, right? Like if you just write a generic Indian person,
we all know that it's just pandering. It's stupid.
Not really going to do much for me in the grand scheme of the social issues and the social awareness I want to raise about my kind out there. It's just designed to be window dressing for, corporate points. And so the link that it has, ESG, there's actually a definition on Investopedia about this, right? So ESG, for anybody that doesn't know, is an essential tool for investors to assess the company's sustainability and ethical performance. Ethical performance being the more important thing over here because we're talking about diversity, right? Which is the S in the ESG score.
And the thing is, like, a lot of people will be watching this and they will immediately associate things like the lack of there being more diverse people means that a company by default gets less of an ESG score. And granted, that is what it visibly looks like, but it does have an involvement of much more than that. I was looking through the whole thing about Boeing recently because I have to mention Capcom and such, who are not hiring, who are not firing people, but like the whole Boeing effect, like a company that is just trying to survive off of the legacy that they build, but are kind of living all of the actual quality control of things, and then are leaving their employees to suffer and all that. That also involves the ESG. But obviously, when you look at, let's say, what I'm pretty certain that he's going to mention Apple here, because usually they get brought up first when it comes to this type of score. Obviously, one of the biggest company, then Microsoft. That also why I brought up BlackRock, because they involve a lot of things in the background.
So an ESG score is kind of like, the best way to put it is like, you know how you have a credit score, right? Like, this is how good I am financially in the world. What an ESG score is, again, it evaluates for how effective a company is, 0 to 100, on environmental
labor practices, everything.
Issues, social issues like labor practices, pro-diversity efforts, human rights, community relations, health and safety, governance issues. On a surface level, it's not necessarily the most evil thing in the world, because it's just a score that shows you, like, hey, these companies are relatively good, ethical companies, all right? Hey, this is a weapons manufacturer that pretty much employs some of the worst practices around
uses
the world,
kids, and
the
weapons are made to kill kittens.
Creating weapons of mass destruction, so to speak. They probably get a low ESG score. Versus like a company that I guess is historically or traditionally doing good in the eyes of these organizations, and they get, I guess, a good score. And obviously there's a few ESG rating companies, kind of like the Equifax of this entire situation. So this is like the Bloomberg ESG, the Dow Jones Sustainability Indexes, the Sustainalytics, Refinitiv, S&P Global,
I'm surprised.
CDP scores,
Apple
so on and so forth.
first.
So for instance,
the
if
companies
you want to look
themselves,
up, like,
okay.
the ESG score of a company like, I don't know, Apple, for instance, right?
Let's go.
Trending ticker at the moment. What you do is you go to like the Yahoo Finance website, you go to the sustainability tab, and you can see that this is their like ESG score. So they're like 17, and they've got a significant controversy level. They're actually low. So Apple, regardless of all its grandstanding, is rated pretty low on the ESG score. And of course, this ESG score has some effect on the actual stock price itself and the investor's perception of a good company. At least that's what I've learned over here. So generally, again, to round it all back, the reason why people have been looking at Sweet Baby Inc. is their involvement in a lot of these projects, which for the gamers who are boycotting it appears to be pretty harmful in terms of the writing quality for some of these games. Also that these companies can have more diversity, equity, and inclusion, so they can raise their ESG scores and look more palatable for actual investors in the gaming industry. That's pretty much the general understanding and the general story that is being pushed by some of these groups out here. Now, look, at the end of the day, I think that for a lot of the games that Sweet Baby Inc. has worked with, and again, to go back to their projects, there have been a lot of successful hitters like God of War Ragnarok, Alan Wake 2, Spider-Man 2 seems to have gotten pretty relatively great reviews. Obviously, they've got one game in this list here that is absolutely despised by individuals.
Yeah.
And again, it's hard to say how much Sweet Baby Inc. has worked with some of these games entirely. I think it's absolutely a very, very, very key thing to talk about. Some of their members, some of the higher ranking members, making those rather off-color tweets in general.
Absolutely.
Now, of course, ladies and gentlemen, Kotaku jumped in and made an article saying Sweet Baby Inc. doesn't do what some gamers think it does. No, one company is enforcing diversity into all your favorite games. So again, right into this article, one of the things they talk about is Sweet Baby Inc. is enforcing diversity. It's happening naturally, they say. So inside here, what they say is, though these kind of social media posts argue that companies like Sweet Baby Inc., because remember, they're not the only company that works in diversity consulting, somehow force game studios to include diverse characters and storyline, the reality is vastly different.
Granted, okay, let's be completely honest here. The statement that was made by one individual mostly through that GDC conference. She was the one whose clip made the round saying that you should be forcing it onto people, okay? That's one person. That might not be representative of the entire company. Let's give at least that level of fairness. Then perhaps, okay? And then again, of course, Kotaku, with the use of word here, they are forcing on all the games. No, what was it on the list? 12 or 16 games were cited. And let's be honest here, a majority of those games were ones that, I guess, concept of, diversity was being involved in there. Because that's literally what they look like. So if you by any way whatsoever would be in doubt of those games being that way, perhaps then consult the list of the curated list. Like, goddamn, you cannot tell me that you are seeing a game like Volcano High and thinking to yourself, oh, this has absolutely nothing to do with diversity. This one is depicting the white life only. I can just imagine people seeing this back in the days where something like The Last of Us or Life is Strange came out and having the same arguments.
Sweet Baby Inc. is a narrative design company, meaning most of its work is focused on writing stories and dialogue. They are not a DEI consultancy firm. So again, when they mention this specific sentence right over here, it actually is contradicted by the website itself. I mean, the website says it's founded in 2018. It is a narrative development and consultation studio based in Montreal and working around the globe. Our mission is to tell better, more empathetic stories while diversifying and enriching the video game industry. We aim to make games more engaging, more fun, more meaningful, and more inclusive for everyone. I mean, that literally does sound like the definition of a DEI consultancy firm.
Yeah. Now, if you can make an argument that they're doing this solely through writing, but I doubt it.
In regards to video games. So even the mass gaming media public out here, right, the mass publications are out there trying to downplay or outright make, in my opinion, improper statements about this situation. So yeah, It's a weird thing to witness. And this is, I guess, what's actually aggravating individuals out there. It almost feels incredibly condescending to anybody that has basic reading skills.
A lot of individuals say this is like Gamergate 2.0, and at the end of the day, all I'm seeing is a group of people who want to vote with their wallet and basically create a list of games that they don't want to support because they're associated with this company, which again, in a free market, you're absolutely allowed to do.
Yeah.
So yeah, Sweet Baby Inc. Are they totally responsible for some of the bad games out there? Again, nobody knows to the degree of what they worked on, and honestly, some of these games that people are criticizing, like the Kill the Justice League nonsense, isn't necessarily bad just because of its writing.
Yeah.
It's bad because it's a crap tier live service game.
Absolutely.
There ain't no writing or ESG outsourcing that ever had anything to do with that nonsense.
And that's the thing, right? Like, there are a bunch of other things out there that are live service as well. What would be your arguments against them? That this one live service game did not do well because of what? When Sweet Baby Inc. isn't involved. It's obviously because of the practice, how a game can turn out to be bad despite there being somewhat of a decent story, or be great despite them having a terrible story. Like Apex Legends. What about CSGO? Is it a bad live service? What about Helldivers 2? Now I know I'm veering on a little bit of a tangent here that has not necessarily anything to do with Sweet Baby Inc. involved here, but more with the whole concept of live service. Because yes, there are good live service games out there, you just need to look for them. Yeah, this whole situation is freaking dumb. The people who are the helm of this company really need to put themselves together or straight up being fired if they want to continue their business without being criticized, because for the most part it has been criticism that people have been levying against them, and god damn it, stop using that type of rhetoric. It helps nobody. And also, the same people on the other hand, then, if you are going to be harassing a studio, which, by the way, can we just agree that 2024 is the year where people kind of need to chill by harassing devs? Like, some people will go like, oh, the composer for Halo, now, not necessarily a developer, I said that he was going to be a Trump supporter. Let's freaking hate him. The dude from Helldivers 2, a developer, says that, well, we shouldn't make the game too easy, so skill issue. They start downvoting them. Larian Studios says that, hello, we're trying to make sure that the game where you are going to be modding things on is working properly, so we do apologize to the fact that something that has literally nothing to do with the base game that works, your mods, may be affected by our patches. People sending death threats. Like, fucking people need to chill, okay? Need to freaking relax. Okay, I was about to edit this video when I got this sent to me my way on Twitter. The guy, the Quan, the man himself, who has seen the tweet on Toriyama and he's about to get roasty. Let's check this out.
So tell me why I'm scrolling through Twitter, right? And I see this tweet come across my timeline that says, y'all are saying rest in power for a man who literally designed this racist ass character design.
Buster Keaton. Oh, it's a different person then.
Dragon Ball Z, so we've seen Mr. Popo before, but I can understand why this person got mad because this nigga looks like it. Look at this nigga. I can't believe this nigga chose to disrespect Akira Toriyama on the day of his death.
God damn, this isn't September yet, dude. Why are you built like Earth, Wind, and Fire? I mean, do you, but don't start trashing on people without expecting that you will be hit back.
Well, since you want to send Akira Toriyama off with that, let's see if we can send you off with this. Nigga, if you don't get your big ass Bridget from Trolls Rage, Shinron, Elder Guru, Majin Buu, Fat Gotenks, Hoggers, Greeley, Janemba, Black Yajirobe, Luffy, Get Full, Tank Man, Grimace, Queen, Big Mom, Julia from Madagascar, PJ from a Goofy movie, Bro Sister, Rasputia, BFB the Fat Man, Steel from Juice, Phazon Love, Big Extra Plug. Look at this fat ass nigga, fat nigga from 8 Mile, built ass, the fuck up out of here.
Worth it. Absolutely worth it.